Focus on Liberia. It's the hour of politics. And if you are just joining us, we want to say the plus and welcome to the broadcast. And the music you're listening to is global, by the way. Today, I'm not going to help you with the explanation of that song. I'm just going to allow you to enjoy the rhythm, the beat, and everything. I'm answering Sier. Some people call me Mlancier. Some people call me Blancier. Others call me political bulldog. That's the name I had. And do us that usual favor by sharing the broadcast with somebody. We have a guest. He is seated in studio. He is comfortable. He is from the civil society. We'll be telling you more about him. Enjoy the song, share the broadcast. Let us get this going. As you may know, the civil society plays a pivotal role in our democracy, especially so in our electioneering process. And Liberia decides this year, so the civil society, we must hear from them. And I'm enjoying the song. I don't know about you. But folks, every good thing must come to an end, and so that is how we will come to the end of this musical interlude in this broadcast here at Focus on Liberia, Hour of Politics. We are starting right now.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Anthony Sier, and again, I want to say welcome to yet another edition of the Hour of Politics here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things our dear country, Liberia. Today's topic is succinct: the role of civil society in our electioneering process. Who we rather have than somebody from the civil society in person of Mr. Anderson Miami, who is the Executive Director of Center. It's good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I think it is my first time. I even think it's my first time on your platform. It's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the great job that you're doing, and thanks to all of the media actors in and out of Liberia who are working for the most part under difficult circumstances to serve the country. Thank you for all that you do. I look forward to a more engaging conversation.
Thank you. And it is our pleasure having you to provide your perspective on our election nearing process that is ongoing. Liberia decides October 10th. He is from the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia. Executive Director Miame Anderson is here. Let's get started here, sir. Um, do you have any reason to believe or not that everything has been done, everything has been put into place properly for the conduct of these elections?
So thank you. Before coming to that question, kindly allow me to say a few things about Centa for those who may be hearing about the organization for the first time. Centa is the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia. It is a civil society organization, a non-governmental organization that was established in 2004. Right after the war, there were a lot of institutions in Liberia, non-governmental, that were focusing on different issues. But then one of the key things that led us to war is the main reason for the underdevelopment of the country, which is corruption, was not really being discussed. So a group of Liberians came together and decided that there needed to be a dedicated institution that looks at the fight against corruption, especially from the civil society standpoint. So Senta came into being in 2004, and since then we've been playing very active roles in the development of Liberia, especially efforts around promoting the culture of accountability, transparency, and integrity. So our center, there are a number of partners we have. For example, the Swedish government, we have UC, the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, and other partners, UNDP inclusive, that have been supporting our work over the period. And there are a number of things that we do here at Center. One of the things that we're very keen about is evidence-based advocacy. So as a civil society organization, you have to be credible. The things you say have to be based on facts. So because of that, we do research a lot so that the data and evidence we gather can inform our decisions, and we can also help to influence public policies based on evidence. So we do research a lot. But then beyond research, we also do a lot of community engagement. We engage with members of the public so that we tell them about corruption, the need to build a culture of integrity across all sectors of society, and the need for citizens to also be a very active part of the fight against corruption. So we run a center called Advocacy and Legal Advice Center, ALAC. We have a hotline that people can call to report corruption. We receive complaints, process those complaints, the co-corruption complaints, we process them and send them to the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. We also run a youth engagement program that looks at building integrity amongst young people. We set up clubs at universities, and students we train and empower go to high schools and communities to engage. Just today, we had a section with some of those students, and they will be going to the different communities to create awareness around voting right, and some of the things that people need to do to really get things right as we go into these elections. So there are several other things that we're doing. We can't talk about everything now. I just wanted to say a few things about the organization so that those who are listening or watching who have not heard about the organization can know a thing or two about the institution as we go into the conversation.
And thank you. And that was important that you stress that and explain your work that you are doing, engaging with young people and giving them all the skills they need to be able to participate, and not only that, to be able to share that knowledge will be communicated. And my question was, do you have, do we have everything properly in place for the conduct of the 2023 election based on your observation from the civil society?
No, everything is not in place. Just the fact that we have some political actors going to court to compel the National Elections Commission to publish the listing of the registered voters in the country means that we don't have everything that we need for these elections. Also, yes, even though civic and voters education have been ongoing over time, but we still need to do a lot more because during the immediate past presidential elections, we had a very huge number of invalid votes. I think around 5%, if I can remember. So that number is very huge. We need to reduce it as we go into these elections, and the way to do it is to educate the public so that people have the right kind of information to make informed decisions, not just in terms of voting for the right people, but then voting right in terms of marking the ballot papers rightly so that we reduce the number of invalid votes. There are also some concerns around, for example, the inaccessibility of parts of the country. At about this time, it is the rainy season in Liberia, and the southeastern part of the country usually is disconnected. So the roads are bad. Getting materials to these places will be a challenge. And as we move on, these are all things that the Elections Commission will have to deal with. But then beyond that, civil society has been very keen about voters education, engaging with the public again, like I said, so that people have what it takes to make informed decisions. A lot of the time people vote here in Liberia not based on the issues, but based on trust, based on popularity, and based on other dimensions. We want for people to focus on the issues as they go to the ballot box comes October, so that we look at, for example, the most substantive issues as we vote for people. So we'll talk about the decision making guide that we did, highlighting a number of things that citizens should watch out for or should look out for in those who are vying for the different public offices, those who want to be representatives, senators, and then the president and vice president. So it's important that we do that. In short, we don't have everything we need to have these elections. Certain things are still outstanding, but have we done a lot more? Yes, the gaps might be there, but not too much if you compare the gaps to the progress we've made in terms of putting the different pieces together to have this election. Remember, Liberia is for the first time planning and holding elections on its own, unlike before when we had UNMIL providing security. We're doing everything by ourselves now, of course, with some sort of support from the international partners. Are we satisfied entirely with what has been happening? No. But do we have confidence in the system that as we move on, things will be right so that we do the right things comes October? Yes, we believe so. So, in short, we don't have everything we need. We are hoping that some of the unfinished matters can be dealt with so that we go to these elections prepared fully for Liberians to exercise their democratic rights as they vote for the next president, the batch of people who go to the lower house, and the other batch of people who go to the Senate to serve them for the next 6 and 9 years.
You talk about voter education. I'm curious here, who all share, if any, in role or responsibility in providing voter education for the voters, and do you know if these institutions have done anything sufficient to ensure that the voters are prepared?
Um, who has the responsibility? It is the National Elections Commission that has the foremost responsibility to educate voters. But then, because the Elections Commission cannot do that alone, they've been collaborating with different stakeholders, especially civil society, over time. So there are a number of civil society organizations that they certify to do voters education. So those CSOs are engaging at the moment in different communities. But as you know, a lot of many parts of the country are accessible. So even as these engagements are ongoing, the level of engagement needed for many of the places, especially those areas that are inaccessible, might not be achieved up to the point we have elections. So this is a concern that people have been raising. This is a concern that we have as a civil society organization or institution. We want for all Liberians to get the message. As the case is right now, everybody does not have that message that information fully. So the need for full decentralization of the things that are happening is extremely important, so that people in the villages can get the information. There are places where people have to work for 2 3 hours before they can access the towns or villages. So imagine people having to go to those places to provide voters education. That's important. But the challenge around accessing these places sometimes can prevent or can pose major hurdles to accessing all of the members of the population, so that again the education required can be provided. Because without adequate education, it will just be difficult for people to make the right decisions as they go to the polls. Two things: the voting aspect of it, because of the invalid votes that I told you about earlier, that during the immediate past election, we have almost 5% invalid vote. So we need to reduce that significantly this time around. And the way to do that is to engage a lot more with members of the public and give them the information needed. But then there's also been this issue about voting for people who do not have what it takes to really serve in some of the positions that they vie for. So we're saying that as we move on, let us make these elections issue based. Let us be clear about, for example, the economy, the track record of people. Those who want to be representatives. What are their track records? What have they been doing to the communities in the districts, in the counties? In the case of the senators, are they people who have been leading by example? Are they reputable people? Are they people who, or they're people who have been accused for corruption or stealing the community money or the county money before? These are all things that people should consider. Thankfully, we have internet connectivity in many parts of the country now. People can go online to search and see what is on Anderson or what is on Mr. C. So with that information, they can make informed decisions. Our fear is that if care is not taken, people will vote not based on the real issues, and we will have people coming to power who may not have what it takes to really lead. And when you do that, you basically set yourself up for failure and complaints and disappointment, because the right kind of people do not get voted for, and because of that, we see a lot of underperformance over time.
Anderson, is the civil society certified with any or all the electoral measures put into place by the next so far in terms of training and deploying the manpower? Because you are aware at some point they were talking about biometrics, they brought in gadgets that they should have used. Those things didn't really work out. Uh, to your knowledge, how prepared are they to carry on the election in terms of the manpower?
Honestly, the Elections Commission has done relatively well, but there are still gaps. There are still issues that they need to address, and one of those issues is what I told you about earlier concerning publishing the listing of those that have been certified, to vote during these elections. That's important, and that's what the some of the political parties are raising issues around. We need to have very clear information on the number of registered voters, so that with that verified information, people can then know how many persons will vote at this particular center and polling place. That's important. So NEC has not addressed that. Yes, yesterday, the chairperson of the Elections Commission had a press conference, and then she was talking, not yesterday, 2 days ago, and was talking about releasing the information in 2 or 3 days. So we are watching out for that information, so that it's published for people to be very clear about the number of people, and not just the number of people, but who will be voting in particular places in the country. That's important. That has not been done. There are also issues around voters' education that I told you about. People are doing that. Civil society organizations are doing that. The Elections Commission is partnering with different stakeholders to do that. But that is not enough. We need to do a lot more around that so that many people and all members of the population basically can get the information. In the absence of that, we might have a lot of invalid votes, and it wouldn't all go well for our democratic process.
Do you share any disappointment on the part of political parties at this point in the electoral process? Because of recent, we saw the Unity Party filing a writ of mandamus, trying to compel the NEG to release the FFR. Uh, at this late, we better have 14 days to the election. Any disappointment that you share in them being active and proactive, if you like?
Yeah, of course, the political parties need to do more. And part of what they also need to do as part of this whole voters' education, because they have the voters. So they need to engage more, do more to educate the citizenry so that the vote right as well. So when we're talking about the Elections Commission being the primary institution responsible to do voters education, civil society organizations and these political parties and independent candidates also have that responsibility. Have they been performing those functions very well? No, I'll tell you no. And it is because of that that we see some of the challenges that we see around. For example, just today we're hearing about some violent situations in Foya situation rather in Foya, Lofa County, that has reportedly led to the death of an individual that is still being investigated. And these are not good signs as we move towards October 10. It is important that we maintain the peace, and this is an extremely important thing that we need to do. Liberia has been peaceful, largely, of course. By peace here, we're talking about the silence of the guns. Peace can be seen from different angles. If you're hungry, if you don't have a job, if you are not economically self-reliant, you can consider yourself as not being peaceful. But peace in this context refers to the absence of the sounds of the gun. So that peace we've been enjoying over time, we need to entrench, we need to sustain, and the parties have very greater responsibility because they have the supporters. They need to exercise restraint. They need to be very tolerant as they engage, because we've seen some back and forth between and amongst the political parties over time. And what we can say is that they need to exercise restraint, be more tolerant and be more mature as they engage, because we have one Liberia, we have one country to protect, and we should not allow elections to divide us, because after elections we'll be here to live and interact and engage.
The issue of focusing on the issues, debates, we don't see as much as we would love to see. From the perspective of the civil society, what is stopping, a debate among the candidates and, if you like, the parties on the issues?
Debates are taking place. Just today, the USA is supporting a number of Liberian organizations, including media institutions, to
Mhm.
organize vice presidential and representative debates. So they've been doing that. We ourselves here at Centar, about a week or so ago, we had a dialogue with the presidential candidates around their plans to deal with corruption. So we were looking mainly at the fight against corruption and what plans they have, to really concretely and genuinely fight against corruption. There are presidential debates pending for October, before the elections. So we've been having that over time. Could we have done more so that people interact a lot more and citizens can have opportunity to really hear from those who are vying for these offices to make decisions in terms of who is really speaking to the issues, who is being truthful here, and who has the track record and what it takes to deliver? No. So we would have done more. But some things are happening around debates, and hopefully those efforts can help citizens and the voters to make informed decisions as we move towards the October elections.
Let's talk about the way our electoral system is set up. Uh, is our system a part of a problem, or the actors tend to bring problem within the system? What is your take?
By system and actors, what do you mean? Could you be a
So
bit
we
more
have an
specific?
electoral system that is set up one man, one vote system. Uh, People vote, the votes are tallied at the polling places, they are mounted on the wall, and the results are sent to the that whole system. Uh, do you have any qualm with it?
At this point, of course, there are issues that we need to address around our elections. For example, the time we have for preparation and the extent to which we engage with the Elections Commission and provide them with the necessary logistics and financial resources to work. You know, that process has not worked very well for us. So the commission has been complaining, and even as we speak, the budget that they did, around 90 plus million budget, the government cut it down to around 50 or 60 million thereabout. So they didn't get all of the resources that they needed to work with. But then also not just reducing the amount, accessing the funds sometimes can be a problem. There was a period they were complaining that, oh, we need resources to do X, Y, Z, and that complaining has been ongoing over time. So that, of course, if we are looking at the system as part of the whole electoral process, then we say no. Doing things this way is not the proper way to go. I was just talking about the whole issue around civic and voters education, especially voters education, exciting people, motivating people, getting the people to go and register, you know, in the first place. But then beyond registration, getting them to go and vote. A lot of people in Liberia think that they should not vote because when they vote for people, they do not get the dividends. You know, most of those who are elected seek their own interests at the expense of the vast majority of the population. So a lot of people are discouraged. Of course, this conversation is helped to encourage those in that category that their vote is the power. If things were not right yesterday, they can be right today. So all you need to do is to vote based on issues. Look at the track record of people. Look at what has been reported on those who are vying for public offices. Go to the places they've worked before, whether in the public sector, in the private sector, in NGO, in the media, wherever they've worked. For the religious people, those who are imam, those who are pastors, those who are evangelists that are vying for public offices, people can go to their churches or where they have lived or worked to find out what kind of life they've been living. That's important. If somebody has been corrupt, most likely when it comes to public service, they will be corrupt. If somebody that was maybe managing some susu or some small team and misapplied their resources, maybe 50, 20, 30, or 40,000, when you give that person power and he or she has access to millions of dollars, they will do exactly what they did or even more. So these are considerations that we need to make. Have we been doing more around educating the public, doing civic education, telling people about their responsibilities and the need to register to vote and all of that? Yes, but we have not been doing so much in terms of the adequacy of those efforts. Have we also been doing enough to educate voters? That is important as we go through these processes. We have not done much around that. There are still major gaps that we need to fill. So we're saying that looking at the system generally, we have to do more in terms of, for example, funding the processes we have, more in terms of providing logistical support, more in terms of the kind of people who go to or who serve at the electoral body, the commission. I know there was a point in time that people were nominated and there was noise around their independence and all of that. Although we've passed that level at the moment, but these are all things that we need to get right so that we get the right kind of people to serve in these offices. Beyond that, that we support them adequately and we give them the space and the leverage so that they operate at full capacity to deliver on their respective minutes.
Anasim Miame is the executive director of Center Liberia. He's our guest, and we are discussing the role of civil society in our electioneering process. If you are still joining us, this is the Hour of Politics with me, Anthony C. Here, I focus on Liberia. Mr. Miame, the whole thing about observers, every time there is election in any or every country, we hear about observers. Tell us, what role do observers play? Do we actually need them? What is the significance of having observers during elections?
Yes, of course, we need observers. As part of the whole electoral system or process, you need people to monitor, not just the electoral process. If you have anything happening and monitoring is not taking place, there's a likelihood of mistakes. So if people are monitoring, it helps to lend credibility to the process. It helps, to ensure that there is another layer of scrutiny, so that with the knowledge that somebody is sitting somewhere watching, you then become a bit more careful. If people wanted to do something crazy, they would think that people are watching, and because they're watching, they will try to rethink their decisions. So it's important for
So,
us to
what's
have.
what are the specific things? What are the specific issues or things that the observers are looking at? What are they monitoring specifically?
So, monitoring takes place throughout the electoral process. From the very day we begin the process of planning for our elections,
Mhm.
looking at, for example, getting the right people on the commission, the commissioners, and the other technicians. The whole plan around the elections in terms of the timetable. What do we do? When do we do voters registration? When do we publish the initial listing, the final listing, and all the different things? When do we open nomination up for candidates? When do we register a certificate of candidates? When do we go to elections? When do we announce the results and all of that? When does inauguration take place? So these are all things that are part of the electoral process. So as you move along the continuum, there has to be monitoring so that at every stage people can track what is happening to provide inputs or to provide feedback. So if NEC, for example, is doing registration and that process is not decentralized, and the way they set up the registration centers, people in the rural parts of the country cannot access those centers so easily. Civil society tracking or the tracking of development partners or monitoring can help to bring out information that can help to improve that process either at that point or subsequently. If the commission is doing similar exercise, they can try to address some of those challenges. So monitoring helps to improve on processes as you move on, but then they also help for the future. So you could improve on something that you're doing now because of the findings from a monitoring exercise, and you can use those findings to improve on the things that you do 1 year later, say, 2 years later, or 3 years later. So monitoring is important. What do the monitors look at? They look at the processes. They look at, for example, the sufficiency of the processes that are in place. They look at the timeliness of the things that are happening. They also look at the integrity of the processes. So some of the observers, we have our partners, the ECOWAS, the AU. They've been, for example, engaging with the Elections Commission and looking at the data center, whether the setup is vibrant enough, whether there is transparency around what they're doing, all of that. So what I'm saying in short is monitoring is extremely important. When the ballot papers are being transported, it's important for people to check and find out if they have arrived at the different locations. If that information is available, especially for places that may not get those ballot papers on time, people will start to raise the issue, and maybe the Elections Commission could act in a certain way. Monitoring also looks at the whole issue of the situation with the roads in the country. So if the roads are impassable and the Elections Commission gets that feedback, it means they will have to put measures into place to ensure that they can access those areas through whatever possible or feasible means. even if it means, for example, airlifting some of the materials either to the southeast or those locations that the roads might be impassable. So, in short, it's important to monitor. We have both local and international monitors or observers here, and hopefully, their monitoring can help. The challenge with that is over time, like we're saying at some point, we've had people observing elections over time, either in Liberia or elsewhere in the world. But some of those elections have had issues. So we're saying that there has to be a bit more robustness. And civil society is very actively engaging with this process. There are two groups, meaning that have recruited observers and would be deploying people. I think about 4,000 or so combined to the different locations across the country to do monitoring during these elections. Even we ourselves, as we said, we have some framework in place here observing what is happening. We're saying what we're saying to you at the moment because of the sporadic monitoring we've been doing, and we hope, of course, to improve on what we're doing here. But that as we move on, generally as a country, we can strengthen our monitoring regime because that is the only way you can gather feedback on what is happening. And with the feedback, you can then make adjustments where necessary to arrive at your destination in terms of doing the right things to put all of the mechanisms in place so that you have very peaceful, credible, and transparent elections.
The goal has always been to have a free, fair, and transparent election. How do political actors with interest in the election designate responsibilities to their representatives, and what specifically can they do at those various polls or polling places for the election to be ensured as fair, free, and transparent?
A number of things can happen. Part of it is on the Elections Commission, and thankfully, the commission has said that accredited people and party representatives will have access to where people will be voting and where even the counting will be taking place. That's laudable. I think part of the challenge we've had is that over time is that many of the political parties often than not do not have the number of people to represent them at all of the voting places. So that has been a problem. Hopefully, they can do more this time around, and civil society can also help with that process in terms of having independent people at the different polling places and centers to ensure that they very closely monitor the voting process, and not just the voting but the counting process. That's important. So parties can help to build the capacity of their members, their supporters, like viewers generally. Civil society can help to build the capacity of people, train them to what to watch out for as they go to monitor. Whether suspicious movements, whether you see something unusual happening, the timeliness of the process in terms of startup. So there are instances where the voting can start late. In some areas, voting can start 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock. In some areas, voting can start 8:30 because of different reasons. So these are all things that the observers are supposed to monitor. But then as they're there, they're also supposed to watch for anything that may be influencing of those who come, or anybody is coming at the center with some campaign related material. Either you are coming with a face cap or a t-shirt that has the logo or the picture of a particular political leader or your candidate. So there are a number of things that the observers are actually supposed to look at, the peacefulness of the voting environment, whether people are being intimidated and all of that. So those are some of the things that are considered or are investigated or monitored by the observers, so that at the end of the day they can do a whole report, comprehensive report on the activities at the different polling centers and places to give the public a clearer and fairer picture, a fair picture of what has been obtaining. Journalists also do report from these centers as well, and their reports and the reports from the different observers can help to provide the public with information on the happenings.
You are watching the Hour of Politics here at Focus on Liberia. We are in conversation with the Executive Director for the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, that is Center. Mr. Anasim Miame is our guests into this edition of the Hour of Politics. We are discussing the role of civil society in our election hearing process. Of recent, uh, a good number of the opposition uh, community have expressed fears that the ruling establishment might be up to cheating. Um, this is what they suspect. And they are even launched a campaign called Don't Try It. From your vantage point as civil society, any reason to see these fears that they're having as credible, and some of them are even sounding, or some people call it beating war drum. Are you concerned about this?
Yeah, we're concerned about everything that happens around these elections, and we're also concerned about the statements that people are making. But then we're also concerned about the way the elections commission has been conducting herself along some lines. I earlier told you about at as of this point, the commission now publishing the final list of people who are supposed to be voting, during these elections. People are opting for that, partners are opting for that, civil society, the political parties. So the elections commission has to provide that information to the public. And you know that access to information is power. When you have information, it helps you to make informed decision. And if information is not timely provided, people speculate. And when people speculate, usually it can be against the institution withholding such information. So we wouldn't entirely say that what people are saying, they don't have the right to say them. They have the right to say what they have to say. But of course, people have to be factual as they engage with these processes. There will be challenges here and there. But what efforts are we making to address those challenges timely so that we get the confidence levels among the public as we need to? If citizens do not have confidence in the electoral process, it is a problem. It is even more of a problem if the political parties and the actors do not have confidence in the system. As it is, there's a lot of confidence in the system, but of course, there are some things that have been happening that the Elections Commission needs to address so that the confidence comes in full, probably 100% or 80% or 85 or 90%, because confidence again is extremely important. If people don't trust the system, there is a problem. So we need the NEC to do the needful, but then we also need political parties to be careful with some of the things that they say. The rhetorics, normally people talk about tuning down the rhetorics. We've been hearing a whole lot, whether or not people are contemplating on cheating, that's something that we can say. But what we can say is that all of the actors have to play their roles very well. The elections commission has to do more to win the trust and confidence of everyone, not just the political parties, but civil society, citizens, and development partners. But then the parties also have a responsibility to help to maintain the peace, to be factual and evidence based as they engage with the different processes.
Mr. Executive Director, is it possible for cheating to go on, for these elections to be rigged by the NEG or anyone, given the way the system is set up? Is it possible?
I wouldn't pretend to be a technician to really speak to that, or I haven't accessed the system. Of course, we've heard from some of the partners that the system is relatively robust, but this is Liberia, this is Africa. There have been news about rigging of elections over time in Africa. Even in Liberia, we've had some challenges along the way in the past. So I wouldn't rule that out entirely. But do I see that happening during these elections? That's not something that we can say. Of course, we don't have sufficient grounds or evidence to say that. We must be careful with what we say, especially so that we have to be evidence based in our statements. I have not seen anything to have any reason, sufficient reason to say that cheating is going to take place. But does that mean it might not happen? No, it could happen. But again, the partners are engaging. We're all engaging. That's why we're having this conversation, so that people do what is right. Just yesterday, the U.S. government announced visa restriction for anyone who will do anything to undermine the democracy of the country, especially free, fair, and transparent electoral process in Liberia. That was a welcoming statement. We welcome that statement very highly, and we're hoping, we believe that the different players, those are the elections commission, the political parties, the independent candidates, Liberians in the diaspora, and people here heard that statement. The news
Mr.
outlets have
Miami, if I
reported.
may hasten to jump in here, what is in that statement that you are welcoming, and what impact it will have? What will it avoid? Will it avert? How does that lead to anything positive for which you are welcoming it with open arms?
Um, a number of things can happen. As you know, first of all, America plays a very important role in Liberia. They have the wield a lot of influence, So anytime America speaks, Liberians shake up, or the government shakes up, for the most part. Um, there were some very powerful government officials here about a year or two ago. They were sanctioned by the U.S. government, and they eventually left government. Even though sadly
And yet these individuals are participating in the election. So this
they're
statement is not.
participating, but yeah, but the Americans have said that they can come up with these decisions, but it's up to us Liberians to take them forward from there. So if our government does not investigate to prosecute these people, we cannot put that to the United States. If citizens do not stand up to demand
So
accountability of
if
the
their
leaders,
statements are meaningless to the process, why are you welcoming something that is meaningless?
no, it's not. It's not. I just told you that the sanction made Nathaniel Magé, Biotrawe, and some of those officials to leave the government. If it is that meaningless as you're terming, they would not have left government. I don't know if anything would have made Magé to leave the George Weah government had it not been for the sanction from the U.S. government. So the sanctions have been making some impact. Do I want to see a lot more? Yes, I want to. Do other Liberians want to see a lot more? Yes, but the sanctions made some impact. What I'm saying with the visa restriction is the fact that people are going to be a bit more careful in terms of what to do, because the Americans are not, they are not announcing or publicizing who has been restricted. So you might just go to the embassy for visa, or your children to go for study, or to go for some medical examination and all of that, and then you get prevented from traveling to the US because of the visa restriction. So yes, is it what we need entirely to address the issues that we have or that we may have? No, but can it help to contribute towards the solution, or can it serve as one of the deterrent factors for getting people not to do anything crazy? If they ever thought about doing that, I would say yes to you. So we can look at it from different angles, but based on the different engagements and based on what I know of the involvement of the US in our different processes, not actively, of course, but the kind of roles that they've been playing, that a visa restriction decision might lead to something positive, for us as we go to these elections.
Mr. Executive Director, a similar statement was released by the U.S. Secretary of State on the just ended Sierra Leone election after they did an investigation established that the election was rigged by the Bio administration. So individuals, based on their report, who were identified to have carried on the rigging of the election, they placed sanction, or travel or visa restriction on them. Those individuals don't need to go to America. Maybe they were paid to have carried on that exercise. They have their money anyway. They're going to enjoy. It's not going to lead to the change of Bill not being the president of Sierra Leone. So when you said this is meaningful, I find it difficult. It's like empty statement. So what I don't see what good this going to do.
Yeah, again, we also have to understand that, not speaking for the Americans,
Mhm.
we have the responsibility to do things right and to handle our own affairs.
Right.
So the partners should not be coming in the first place to be helping us. So if they came to helping anyway, and that help can help in a way to improve on the things that we're doing, I say yes, it's something that we welcome. And I'm on the ground. We've been engaging. We know what the statements from the partners can do. I very, I can tell you with certainty that that statement has sent shockwaves in the spines of people, other people who wanted to do some crazy things, or people who were thinking about it. So yes, I will agree with you in a sense that the overall effectiveness, if people want to do certain things, they can still do. And we think about, we reflect on these things. If somebody could say, okay, I don't need to go to America, I can go to France, I can go to other countries. I agree with you, that can happen. But you also know the ties Liberia has with the US. If you check the number of Liberians outside of Liberia, you have a lot more, in those in a single space, we have a lot more in the US than any other country in the world. So what I'm saying, in essence, is that statement, the Americans should not even be helping us to do our stuff in the first place, but that we're at a point where we need our partners to provide technical support, financial support, and otherwise we'll welcome the things we do. If it is not something to be welcomed, of course we'll say that. But in this case, we know that that restriction decision is going to make some impact. It may not be at the level we want to see it, of course, I must admit to you, but will it do something? Yes, it will. Hopefully, as we move on, we can get to a point where we'll not have the Americans even announcing visa restrictions or sanctions, because we'll be taking our own actions in country to deal with corruption. Those who were sanctioned the other time were sanctioned for corruption. If we had our system going after people vigorously, investigating and prosecuting them, we wouldn't have the Americans imposing sanctions on people. If we have people doing things right, if we didn't have people making reckless statements and all of that, we wouldn't have them coming to talk about visa restriction and all of that. So I think we should be angry more with ourselves. We should do more, demand more of ourselves and our government, our leaders, so that we do the right things. They will not have to have these partners coming to either impose sanctions or to even talk about providing financial and other support to do some of the things that we naturally we are able to do because of the resources we have.
Our three most recent elections went to runoff. This election, for some reason, almost all of the major candidates claim that they will win the first round. Coming claim it, Weah has claimed it, Baka has claimed it, Jawon Gonglo has claimed it. You have observed elections for some time now. Is there any reason to believe any of these political actors that they will win the team first round?
That's very highly unlikely. If we consider the variables, um, the last few elections we've had, like you said, we haven't had a winner on first ballot. So to have that this time around, we see has been very difficult. So is it impossible 100%? No. But then is it, if you look at the possibility on a scale of 1 to 100, I will put it at maybe 1% or 2%.
And so finally, Mr. Yamin, what will a free, fair, and transparent election look like to you at the end of this entire electoral process?
A free, fair, and transparent election, among other things, would be one that uh, before and on the day of voting, all Liberians with rights, 18 years and above, because that's the voting age,
Mhm.
had the opportunity to register, to verify their names and go through the different processes, had the opportunity to have adequate information about the voting process, had the opportunity of getting sufficient information on the candidates, their track records, and all of that. And the knowledge then helps them to make informed judgments or decisions. I would then say that the election was free, fair or transparent, combining the three words. If
Mhm.
we also have a process whereby on the different political parties and candidates, excuse me, have access to the media, that each of them can make full use of the media, or those who have money, those who don't have money. By the way, we have requirements for what people can spend during these elections. But the point I'm making is the media should provide a space for everyone to communicate their ideas. Those who appear to have resources and those who don't appear to have resources, everyone should have the space, at minimum, to communicate your ideas. So if you don't have that kind of situation, and many people are excluded, or they're blacklisted, or there are some barriers, direct and indirect barriers to them accessing the media to communicate their messages, then you have a problem. If civil society organizations are also organizing events and only inviting a certain kind of people and not a generality of the candidates in the race to communicate their ideas, then you have a problem. On the day of voting, if people get intimidated by maybe security officers or by some political actors, and all of the people cannot exercise their votes, their franchise, because of certain barriers, artificial barriers that are created, then you have a problem. If you also have a process whereby the vote counting process is manipulated, and the tallies from the different polling places and centers are not matching with the results that the elections commission is announcing, then you have a problem. So you will need all of these things to be addressed, especially the last one that I listed about challenges, so that we did say we've had a very free, fair, and transparent elections. Transparent in terms of people seeing exactly what has happened. There is clarity. The ballot papers are verifiable in terms of the numbers that the Elections Commission will be announcing, and fairness in terms of giving people the space. Like I said, all of the presidential candidates have the space to use the media and use the different platforms. Giving political parties should not be prevented from using probably the City Hall, the Buchanan Hall, the hall in Nimba, or any of these counties, because they're opposition political parties. If you start to see those things happening, then you have a problem. So you will need all of these things not to take place, especially the negative, and you will need the positives to happen for us to see we've had a free, fair, and transparent elections.
And with all that you have narrated, will we have a free and fair election?
Um, those words can be tricky to use. The
Mhm.
experts will say, okay, if we have transparency around the process, that's okay. If we attain maybe 90%, because realistically sometimes you have issues. Voters education, civic education, and those things you might be lacking in some areas at some point, because of the nature of the country we have, the population we have, high level illiteracy, and all of that. So sometimes talking about free, fair, and transparent 100% can be tricky. But if you aim to achieve around 90%, 95%, and you got that, I think that would be appreciable.
That will be appreciable. So, at what percentage you suspect the election will be free, fair, and transparent?
At the moment, we still have a lot of things happening. I wouldn't put a percentage to that at the moment.
Mhm.
Hopefully, as the different processes conclude, because like I told you, the Elections Commission has said that they will be publishing the listing of the voters. So that is a very important indicator
Mhm.
that people can look at to judge the elections in terms of being free, fair, and transparent. So at this point, I will refrain from assigning percentage as such, to wait and see what happens, so that probably after the elections we can come here again to have another conversation, and we talk about how the elections went and what we think about the different processes that took place, and what is our general or overall assessment of the things that happened during the elections. Earlier I talked about the decision making guide that we produced here at Center, that highlights what citizens need to do to vote right during these elections. I can just say a few things about it. Since you were talking about us, maybe
Yeah,
concluding or
so I,
so.
I, I
Uh,
want you to give your closing, if you don't mind, your closing statement yet. And you look in the camera, librarians are listening to you. Some may not have the opportunity to hear you again before they cast their ballots. Uh, what should they know as they cast their ballot on October the 10th?
so Liberians, in Liberia and away from Liberia, those watching us, those listening to us, we want to say we're at a very crucial period. Elections can make or break. The decisions we make during these elections, we'll have to live with them for the next 6 and 9 years. So it's extremely important. The child that was born just about the time the CDC government took power in 2018 is going towards 6 years. It means that baby now has gotten to is walking and is schooling and all of that. So what I'm saying is 6 years is not a small time. 9 years. We need to talk about 9 years. Let us make things right as we go to these elections. Let us move away from tribal politics. Let's move away from sectionalism. Let's move away from popularity. Let's move away from people who dishing out money as a basis for attracting our votes. It's important for us to vote based on issues. Let us look at the track records of people. Those who come to you and make promises, listen to them, but then ask them the very hard questions. If a representative candidate is telling you about building roads, building hospitals, and our constitution is very clear about what their roles are, then tell them or ask them whether this is actually what they are supposed to be doing for you. Do not vote for people who have very bad track record. Those who have, for example, been sanctioned, for corruption. Of course, sanctions are not convictions. By sanctioning somebody, it doesn't mean that they are guilty. But why would you want to vote for somebody who has been accused for corrupting the system when you have maybe 15, 20, or 30 other options from which to select? We're saying that accountability is very important as we go to these elections, knowing that Liberia is what it is, mainly because of corruption. We've had leaders who have put their own interests ahead of the interests of the country. Vote for people who are clean, people who come to the table with very clean records. Vote for people who have been there for the people in the communities. Being there does not mean the biggest spender. People who spend more in elections, usually when they win, they find ways to get the money back. When you sell your vote, you are basically selling your future. The $5, $10, or $15 half bag of rice you get now will not carry you anywhere. You will eat that money in less than 2 days or even 1 week, and your whole future is messed up. Your children's future messed up because you took 10, 15, $20 from the wrong person and voted for them. Let us vote right during these elections. Let us avoid violence. Violence does not take people anywhere. We've been at peace. The guns have not been active for a very long time now. We need to keep things as they are, engage with the process constructively. We can differ, but your disagreement should be channeled in a constructive way so that we can have one Liberia, a peaceful Liberia after these elections. Whoever wins, once the process is free, fair, and transparent, let us accept the results. We have a country to protect, we have a democracy to protect, and we have a future to protect. Most importantly, we have the generations after us to protect, because if we set good examples, they will have a better foundation as they come after us. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. You heard him that we have a country to protect, we have a generation to protect, and I've been at posterity will judge us for the decision that we made today. And he's saying, don't vote because you were given $20 or $15 and you're going to sell your future for 15 or $20 or sometimes a t-shirt. Do it right. He said the one who sometimes spend the biggest money, he will always find a way or she will always find a way to get that money back whenever they are elected. It's like a political business. You know, they spend more money, they get that vote, and then they want to make profit when they get in power. Our guest has been Anderson Miami, Executive Director of the Center, that's the Center for Accountability, Transparency and Accountability, I believe. Thank you for joining us in today's edition of Hour of Politics. We hope to have you soon, maybe after the first round of elections, so that we can talk again. We appreciate your perspective today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. C. It's a pleasure. I look forward to further engagement, and thank you for all that you do. God bless Liberia, and God bless the population.
Thank you. And with that said, enjoy the song that says, "We are all Liberians," and thank you. Bye-bye, folks.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our home. Liberia people. Either you hate it or we want. Liberia. Either you hate it or we want. Liberia, Liberia.